Welcome to the May edition of Oilfield Network News. Our mission is to help our industry with safety stories to stop repeat accidents and highlight new technology. Most recently, our third focus has been the most active, that being help others find jobs in the oil and gas industry. On the safety topic, we've been involved in several discussions, the most recent of which was initiated by Brian Cho of the Pay It Forward networking programs, about face masks. If you are a manager or a team lead in the oil and gas industry, you set the standard for adherence to all personal protective equipment policy. If you don't wear a face mask on an elevator or a crowded conference room, or not wear a hard hat where required, your team will likely follow your lead. I recall when mandatory seatbelts was a new policy. Yes, I know, that means I'm old. It was really difficult to get everyone to change their behavior. And in some places, it required managers to be fired for their workers not wearing seatbelts in order to get everyone to get on board and buckle up. Now, thankfully, it's become a behavioral habit and thousands of lives have been saved. Fast forward to today, and we have had reports that some oilfield companies and service companies are not following face mask policies. The general excuses seem very similar. This shows I'm afraid, or I'm able to deal with this without PPE because I'm tough. Like seatbelts, face masks, when a 6-foot distance cannot be maintained, will prevent the spread of viruses and save lives. Next time you're in an elevator or a crowded meeting room, ask yourself, would I let these people ride with me in a car without a seatbelt? Hopefully not. If you're a manager, be a leader and follow the policies. If you're with your boss, make a point to stay 6 feet back, or better yet, carry an extra face mask and hand it to them. It took several years to get 100% compliance with seatbelt policies. Let's see if we can do a little better with all personal protective gear, including face masks. In the area of finding jobs, we were introduced to Oilfield Resources podcast by Reed Stiles by a Pay It Forward networking program's Highlander, Chris Gonzalez. So thanks for that, Chris. I listened to an interview Reed had with Matt Francis, who provided some excellent advice on transforming from a petrophysicist to a career in data science. After linking in with Reed, he offered to share a little more about his podcast in a Zoom meeting. Here's a short clip of that discussion.
I've got Reed, and he does a podcast, which I've listened to, and it's excellent. And so I'll let Reed tell me a little bit more about his podcast and maybe how it got started.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You know, about 3 months ago, I was really sitting back in my chair at my office and really thinking, you know, what would I do if I wasn't a petroleum engineer? You know, for the past 8 years, I've been a petroleum engineer that has worked at an operator and then kind of transitioned to a tech startup that was focused on oil and gas. And then now I kind of work in a more investment role, but we invest in oil and gas. So I kind of have moved away from a more producer operator role, but I have kind of wondered, like, what else would I do? You know, what other options are out there? It kind of coincided weirdly with this whole downturn. So I was starting to throw an idea around with my colleagues and friends, you know, hey, what resources are out there if you want to transition to a new role? What other career opportunities are good for a petroleum engineer to transition to? And I just really couldn't find a definitive source for it. So I just decided to post on the website, reddit.com, under the Oilfield or the oil and gas workers subreddit. Hey, you know, who's transitioned and how'd you do it? And I noticed a very common trend that there wasn't a definitive guide to transitioning out of oil and gas. And so I just kept interviewing people and realized that, you know, maybe I should just start recording these. You know, I was basically just calling people and talking to them, and they were strangers on the internet. And so for the past 2 months, I've kind of built that network of people who have transitioned. I started recording the interviews, and the Oilfield Resource podcast was born, and it launched last Monday.
Thank you, Reed, for providing this excellent resource to people in career transition. And if you happen to have a successful transition story, check in with Reed Stiles in LinkedIn, and perhaps you can help others by sharing your story, as Matt Francis did on the Oilfield Resource podcast. On the new technology side, I'd like to give a nod to Eileen Ordonez of Seismos. They have some brilliant new technology to measure complexity of fractures, but what I noticed was her use of some humor in alerts. In particular, one of my old favorite Clint Eastwood clips from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That seems to be as good as opportunity as any to show you this month's rig count. Definitely ugly. But as we all know, it's just a matter of time until it returns to the good. Thanks for keeping us smiling while presenting this interesting sonic measurement technology, Eileen. You can find their CEO's interview on our LinkedIn feed as well, so be sure to follow Oilfield Network News in LinkedIn and shoot me an email if you have a good new technology story or a safety alert. Thanks for watching. Remember to follow all personal protective equipment policies and demonstrate leadership so we have the same compliance with all of this as we do now with seatbelts. If everyone does that, just like with seatbelts, lives will be saved. Have a great month of May. Stay well.